Hey everyone, James from TeaDB here, bringing you a Inbetweenisode. So this is another COVID-19 Inbetweenisode. Just filming this here in my house, all alone. No Denny, no one else coming over really. So a good opportunity to do some of these episode ideas that I've been meaning to do, but just haven't got around to. So similar to the 2006 8582, this is sort of an episode of something I bought. This purchase wasn't that recent, but it was in the last year and a half or so. And it's another 8582, which is a Dayi recipe that I do enjoy. Dayi Menghai tea factory, of course, the largest, most well-known tea factory, or I think it's the largest. I'm not 100% on that actually. So I bought this about a year ago from Taishunhe. And gonna talk a little bit about it. It's been a while since I had this cake, probably 3 or 4 months. Garrett also bought a handful of these, so it's something that we do drink now and then. He tends to drink it a little bit more than me. I've been holding on to this a bit longer. So let's take a quick smell. I just drank steep 1. I have steep number 2 here, and I will probably do steep number 3 as well. It's actually my first time brewing this in a pot. I normally use my Shibo, but I realized that this is actually 10 years old in Taiwan storage, so definitely I could use the pot. I've used the pot for a lot of teas around this age range before. And it's interesting, it actually converges a bit closer to the 2006 8582 than I would have thought. It kind of has that similar woody, fruity aroma to it. I think it also, when I do this in the Shibo, there's some greener edges to it too that are easier to pick up on. This pot seems to round it down a little bit in terms of the aromatics. So it's interesting. I might need to do the 2006 8582 in my Shibo sometime and see how that compares. So here we go. Steep number 2. So up front, this is a lot more just upfront bitter and a little sour to it, and I can see why I don't necessarily drink this all that often. It's definitely an edge. I hesitate to necessarily say greener because it's not really grassy or greener bitter, but there's definitely like a pretty strong quality of bitterness in this that's not quite as strong in the 2006. I would still say that tea has maybe a little bit of that. You can definitely tell that tea is still raw, pour, maybe a bit of astringency, but this has a lot more upfront. Yeah, so bitter, sour to start, but it's got a decent body. The overall sort of texture and feeling of the tea is a little bit rounder. It's not as sharp as like a 7542 would be. So there's a nice sort of like round body that's decently large to it as well. So enjoy that aspect. That's something I also noticed in the 2006. So I mean, this tea, 2010 8582, pretty good. So I bought this from Taishunhe, I think a year ago. It cost 700 NTD. I looked that up. So that's only about $23. So 6 or 7 grams per 6 or 7 cents per gram. So this is a pretty darn cheap session. I'm doing 6 to 6.5 grams in a 95 milliliter pot. So that comes out to a pretty reasonably priced session, probably closer to 10 cents a gram after you factor in the shipping and whatnot. So yeah, it's an interesting comparison to the 2006, and it does line up a lot with my memory. Because I bought the 2006 8582 from the same vendor pretty recently, I did want to sort of make this comparison and see how I felt. When I got the 2006, I initially felt like, yes, this is absolutely something I could drink. And I tend to store my teas, or I do store my teas in basically 2 different humidors. One that's a little bit smaller, a little bit more accessible for me, is one that I just will pull cakes from pretty regularly. The other one is more longer, deep-term storage. If I have duplicates, the second version of that cake will definitely be in the deeper storage. Or if there's a tea that's just not ready, I will keep it in that storage. So the 2006 one, I got that and I immediately put it into the sort of easy access humidor. And that's sort of a interesting distinction just because, or an interesting place to put it, just because space is limited. I cannot fit as many cakes as I want into there. So there may be stuff that I think I might want to drink, I might put it in there, and if I don't end up drinking it, I'll end up bouncing it to the longer term storage. So this 2010 8582, on the other hand, has been hanging out in the Euro Cave. All of the cakes of it have been hanging out in the Euro Cave, so it's something that I do not drink regularly. I do not drink from that humidor regularly. There are a lot of teas stored in there. It smells really nice when I open it, but it's not something I even access just really not that often at all. So steep number 3 here. So one of the things I was curious about is Garrett has talked a lot about this tea and about how much he enjoys drinking it. So I was curious if, for my own taste, if it'd be ready to be upgraded into the more accessible humidor. I am starting to think that will not be the judgment here. It will probably remain in the larger humidor. No shame on this cake at all. But for my taste, I think it's just still a little too bitter, a little too green for me to really enjoy. Really nice aroma, really bright, floral. Brew's a dark color, but the taste of it definitely comes a bit greener to it. Interestingly, too, the leaves are pretty dark, but this tea, whereas the 2006, I'd probably put it as pretty moderate Taiwan storage, this to me seems just a little bit drier. I'd definitely say on the dry end of Taiwan storage. Cheers. Bitter, minerally. The bitterness transforms very quickly. One of the nice things about these teas is it is definitely aggressive to start, but the aftertaste and what lingers isn't necessarily as like puckeringly bitter. Some teas, I've especially noted, like sort of Lao Mani, Kucha, bitter teas, can really have that bitterness that lingers. For me personally, I don't care for that. I prefer that initial strength converts to sweetness later on. And for me, that's why I tend to like a lot of these Dayi teas, as while they can be quite punchy, they do tend to convert that Huigan, that sweetness. Cheers. A little bit of fruitiness, a little bit of floralness. If I were to brew this again for other people, I'd probably do it in the Shibo. I think I can get a little bit more of a mellow brew out of that. This is quite strong. Yeah, it's just, this is probably one of the more bitter sessions I've had with this tea. So pretty darn interesting. I will definitely be keeping this in the Euro Cave for now. And as far as a rating goes, going to give this a 5.5. So this is sort of at the bottom of the range of Marco's scale for a B-. It's enjoyable. I could drink this regularly. It's not too impressive now. I do see the promises of a pretty good tea coming out of this. It's got strength, it's got body. A lot of the negatives of this tea are just in the inherent greenness of it, and so those are things that you would hope would age away. It's got good structure to it, and I overall could enjoy it. Is it as enjoyable as the 2006, which I gave a 6.32? You know, not quite. So as far as a value goes, though, very, very good. So I'm not sure if this cake is still available, but you can check it out at Taishunhe if it is. I would say this is definitely a little bit below average. I have a couple of these T-Advanced metrics I've been trying to integrate in. So definitely a little bit below average as far as my stash goes. But for the value, I'd say it's definitely very, very good. Just because 6-7 cents a gram basically gets you very little as far as like a young poor these days. So paying that for something that's 10 years old, that's Taiwan stored, that's clean, and that's decent seems like a pretty reasonable bet for me. So yeah, that just about concludes this In-Betweenisode. Let me know if you have any episode ideas you'd like to be brought on. Trying to just ramp up production a little bit more of some of these In-Betweenisodes for y'all. And hope everyone is following the public health guidelines out there. I'm filming this at the March 24th. So this might be, the situation may have changed significantly since then. So take that into account, but pay attention and definitely respect and try to follow what the local officials are telling you to do. Thank you all for tuning in again. I appreciate you all. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you all next time. Cheers.